welcome to the Wild West podcast. Thanks for joining us again there, Coach. Down diagonally, who decided to make a delayed and very overly dramatic with the shades is Coach Defense of the Lockdown Defense podcast. Coach, thank you for joining us today. Just the drama was a little extra, but we'll work on that. And then directly over here to my right or your left, depending on which way you are facing the screen, is Alex Givens. You can catch him and some of his takes on Arrowhead Addict, and directly following this podcast on the Lightning Fast Fantasy Podcast, which you can catch on Coach Defense's channel there every Wednesday, right? 9:30. So that right there, yep. Yeah, there you go. And I do have some new news on my front. I am going to be green screen. I got a green screen for Christmas. I want to thank you, my girlfriend, who bought it for me for the podcast studio. Lovely lady, thank you very much. And I'm going to go ahead and kick that in the background. I'm working on some graphics and stuff in order to have that fired up for next week's show. So I'm going to be testing that out. It's going to be great. And ladies and gentlemen, obviously, last but not least, is the one and only Captain Jack of the Captain Jack Rackham YouTube channel. Catch him all the time, all over the place, and on most Sundays or whatever day of the week they're going ahead and airing those games. Another thing, just for all of us who are joining, or everyone who's joining us live, first off, thank you. But X or Twitter, whatever you want to call them, those comments are now free flowing.
Look, we got one. First guy.
There it is. Comments are back, baby.
All right. So that was, I don't know, for those of you who are long-term friends of the show, we kept on kind of touting the fact that the Twitter comments or X comments couldn't flow through. Thank you to Elon for finally fixing the nonsense because, well, it was nonsense. And so it really does help the show and help all of us pull in all of your comments as they flow through, because we're basically losing a bunch of you, and we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, it is, Ed. Hey man, the hater light is high, so I gotta wear my shades.
I'm just blocking out the haters.
Oh. Okay, and by the way, when I came on and I was on the phone, who was I on the phone with? Oh, not me. But put it back up. Put it back up.
You was talking to Ed. You were talking to Ed. You weren't talking to your crotch. You were talking to Ed.
Thank you. I was on the phone with I was hey, don't talk. I got something right here. I haven't done it in a while.
Why do I tee you up? I don't know why I even do it.
Yeah, you got to know by this point, dude.
I should.
You're throwing beach balls out here.
I really am.
All three of you guys would say, how can we get Captain Jack to do something just seriously? I can't
maybe that's the angle.
Right
we usually just have to get past about the 3-minute mark, and we're there.
Hey, we're on 4, baby. We're there. We're good.
It is.
But it was that, and when the time comes, I will tell you what he said for me to tell you today.
Fire away. Yeah,
it's for you.
Yeah, that's fine. So let's we're going to kick the show off with the recap of last week. Obviously, some pretty big news throughout both the games as well as ramifications after the games. And for those that are kind of we'll call it regular audience members of the show, last week a lot of foreshadowing occurred during the show because we actually spoke in a fair amount of depth in terms of what has now taken place, at least for my Denver Broncos, and we will definitely be covering that news later on in the show as well. Captain, let's go ahead and start with the Raiders in their game in which they played the Chiefs. Alex, good luck.
I tell you, man, and I don't know. I have to practice. We talk about practice. Yes, again. But we talk about practice being as smug as I could be for this
There
show.
we go.
I don't have the time in the world. I am an old pirate. This salty dog has seen lots of heavy seas in his life. I don't have the time in my life to practice being as smug as I could be, because there was a wonderful, wonderful Hanukkah, Christmas, Festivus, Kwanzaa, every friggin' holiday that you can count that occurs at the end of the year. And I won't say the next one, because hopefully that'll actually happen next week, okay, or upcoming. What a game, baby! Who just won? Raiders! Yark! And there's not enough emotion. There's not enough time. I'd have to do another show, and I actually did after the last night. I don't have enough joy in my heart to say, and I have no problem admitting that I was crying at the end, because I was so damn happy. And this is true too. My son's dog pissed on the whatever that
Come on.
because I was screaming and loud, and it looked like I had Tourette's. And the dog must have said, like, who the is this guy? It scared the dog into peeing. She's never peed on the floor in my house ever. Thank God at least it was the floor and not the rug. Okay. And it was wonderful. So I will say this. As wonderful as the feeling is, there's nothing that I can say, and the glee in my heart, and I give it all. I give it all for Smugville. That man right there, because you couldn't have it any more exciting if there wasn't a team as smug as mother out there that we beat. And I thank you, Alex, for that. It was a fantastic game for the Raiders defense. And I know that Alex is actually going to get through. He's going to actually go through the game, because I'm just so elated. I can't talk about it other than the fact that it's a big fat W for Christmas. Alex, please take it away and give our viewers some of the highlights, lowlights of the game, sir. I know you'll do it well.
I wouldn't say there is any. I'm just kidding. I will try to not be overly smug, because, as I said to Cap, smugness is due where earned, and Raiders definitely earned the smug title this week, right? If it's a good or bad thing, I guess that's still, the jury's still out on that. But yeah, hats off to the Raiders. Absolutely outplayed, outmanned, outcoached the Chiefs. I mean, especially from Raiders defense perspective to, against this KC offense. I think pretty much time from a Chiefs fan perspective to call a spade and say that the Chiefs offense is
what you talking about, Will?
Terrible, absolutely terrible.
Hey coach, you better watch that, man. He's saying going to be calling spades, man. You better check him on that shit.
We talking cards, man. We ain't talking color, brother.
Okay, I'm just making sure. This is a family show, Alex. You know that.
Oh, okay? I know. Sometimes, until it's after dark. Right?
Yeah, right. So it's only 10 hours for Cap.
I mean, literally, KC pretty much went out there and, like I said, laid a fat Christmas egg. Essentially had an overall cultivation of what's been a building up to just a horrendous offensive performance that wasted a tremendous defensive outing. I mean, fact remains, KC's defense, that's the one positive of it, is still elite. I mean, Aiden O'Connell did not complete a pass after the first quarter. They gave up 6 total points against them. But then you turn around and look at the offense that gives up 14 points in 7 seconds of game time through, just dumbass play calling, idiotic methods to moving the ball downfield. And, I think you see, with the implosion, you also see it's just propounded to everything where even, someone as traditionally stoic as Mahomes or Kelsey even, are, everyone's showing their, well, you didn't let me finish. I said traditionally stoic. For the most part, he hasn't worn emotions or shown emotions like that. Albeit for the first 5 years of his career, he's never been in this type of situation. So, are we seeing the true Mahomes? Maybe, maybe not. But, this Chiefs team's completely broken whatever sort of mojo, those guys used to have. I remember after the game, talking like it, for the first 5 seasons, it always seemed like it didn't matter what deficit was out there. Like they're always going to find a way, and they traditionally did. But now, it's just totally unhinged. They've only won. They're 1-4 in games where they're down by double digits. They've yet to have a fourth quarter comeback this year. So, like I said, spade is spade. Chiefs, and I said it kind of going into the final stretch here. They lose to Buffalo. They're probably, I still think make the playoffs, but probably losing in the first round. And I think that's needed because honestly, they need to rehaul the offense. The bandages they tried to use at tackle, that didn't work out. The people they brought in to play receiver obviously aren't working out. Teams have been able to expose that. And the Raiders obviously took full advantage of that, and knowing how predictable this offense has become, and it was just nothing could be done. So, like I said, hats off to the Raiders. Hell of a game, hell of a defensive play calling. Antonio Pierce, I think I actually saw an interesting stat that the 2 Raiders coaches with the highest winning percentage are the 2 interim ones. So, I think he played. He's certainly got him playing lights out football on that side. I hope works his way into at least being considered for the head coach, because definitely seen a culture shift with the Raiders and how they respond and play. But yeah, like I said, writing's on the wall from a KC fan perspective. Like, we got a hell of a defense, pretty mediocre and predictable offense. Everything is just, it's to the point where they can't even line up correctly. Can't run some motion play that they've apparently practiced all week and then just fumble it for 6 points. You see Mahomes not trust his receivers, and then he's either got to do hero ball and run around to even move the ball downfield, or give up, take a sack, and then we're back to it. So, that it is what it is. It's just that was just a perfect, terrible Christmas for Chiefs fans, but just the perfect kind of encapsulating point of when this all just kind of came to a halting stop. So,
I will say this, check the tape, props to Alex Gibbons. He did say, and it's on the reels. Check what's Dion always says. Check the tape, or check the whatever. He said if the Chiefs lose to the Bills, it's probably one and done. Okay, and he said that I give him props for that. The best meme. Okay, 2 other things. I'm sorry. The best meme that I had, and I, if you saw it in my IG and my Facebook, was the one because Mahomes has that recent commercial says, "How do you give the Raiders 14 quick points? You bundle them," and then that's beautiful. You bundle them, and that was it. And I will say this as well, for all of those people that are blowing up Jack Jones for not giving the kid the football.
He tried. Some old man tried to take it.
And the kid's mom, and I didn't know this until I read it today, and I'm glad I got a chance to read it. The kid's mom actually said, it was the dude behind me that was trying to knock it away and knock it into the hands, okay, which is why Jones took it back, because he wanted to give it to the kid. And it was the Kansas City fan behind the kid actually behind the mom that was like getting in the way. So for all those that say that he was a Grinch to Mahomes, he wasn't. I love that face stare down as he's going in the end zone, like that. Because Jones was actually the guy that put the bulletin board material on the week. He said, we don't care.
Gotta stop the magic.
You got to stop the magic, man, and the rest goes. And he backed it up, and I'll give him that as well. Again, it was a fantastic game for the Raiders team. I think that Antonio Pierce needs to be named the head coach based upon that. And if they continue to ascend, I mean, it's a foregone conclusion. It will happen, but the Raiders need to play out the string. But again, I'm glad you actually had a chance to go through the highlights, Alex, because again, I'm just so giddy like a schoolgirl. I just can't. And I'm wearing my Christmas things too.
I don't blame you, man. I lost faith in that 7 seconds when it quickly was 7-3 and then was
on the bundle, baby.
It was 20 or 17-7. That's pretty tough.
Alex, I actually had a question for you. In lieu of what you've seen this season, and it kind of goes all the way back to what we spoke about just kind of leading into the season here, or even early in the season, which was how big of a role do you think Eric Bieniemy played in the team? Because it seems to me that everyone kept on kind of throwing shade Eric's way. But if you're going to be honest, I mean, truly honest with what we've seen on the field, I would almost say that it's a discipline problem on the team. And by all accounts, Eric was the guy that was details. And I think that if anyone's going to need to give credit where credit's due, I think it's Chiefs fans, and I think I think they need to really maybe give the dude a lot more credit than he was getting before.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I know I've said that on the show before as well.
Yeah.
As, I believe I made my own meme with Bieniemy. It's like "Miss Me Yet?" Because obviously Reed is the one of the offensive gurus and ultimately has final say in what they run and install and kind of the final veto in a game. But I do think that Bieniemy and players have come out and said this, and I think it's evident as well by him going to Washington, and now they're not blowing things away, but certainly a much more well-oiled offensive machine over there than what they were last year. And I mean, turned Sam Howell into at least a 6-game stretch looking pretty good. So I mean, I think Bieniemy was always the players have said he was the guy that would get on you and not let, he would make sure that, little things were done right and not be such a player's coach like Coach Reed is, right? Reed's very much like, I'm going to let players, represent themselves, express themselves, but just make sure you show up on when it matters and you execute. Whereas Bieniemy was the guy like, no, I'm going to treat you like you're in high school and you got to prove to me that I could trust you to go out and do that. And that was kind of I think some articles I've read called it kind of like the, good cop, bad cop dynamic. And that obviously worked. But then you bring in Nagy, who is a Reed disciple and probably way more of a yes man than someone that would push back of, hey, I've seen this in tape. We should implement this. And I think that's absolutely true, because you look at how this offensive is. I mean, I even noted this to bring up EB, being gone with kind of seeing the sprinklings of what is Nagy's offense, being front and center in what the Chiefs are trying to do now. I mean, like I said, it's overly predictable now. And I mean, it's screenplay after screenplay. I think in the red zone, they called 8+ plays behind the line of scrimmage. Like, why the hell are you doing that when you have less than 10 yards to go? And obviously it didn't work for them. But I mean, we've seen that game in and game out where, you know, you also have someone like Kelsey who, you know, is probably on the verge of getting 1,000 yards, but for the first time in, I think since his rookie second year, might not get it. Like, why do you see such, and I get that he's going to be 35, but like, come on, like, why are we seeing such a giant drop back and stuff when ultimately the only real change in this offense outside of Juju leaving is Bieniemy leaving and Nagy coming in his place? I mean, it's essentially the same offensive unit that was, you know, up in the top 3 in every metric last year, you know, outside of Juju, outside of Orlando Brown, but I bet Bengals fans at this point would say that Orlando Brown is just as bad. But yeah, so I mean, essentially the same across. I don't know what other offenses outside of maybe the Eagles and Bills, you know, could say this has been the same unit, and it's such a drastic change. I mean, I think it's got to go somewhere in terms of the coaching. Because, I mean, it's like the players aren't really any different. So why is the production and overall – I mean, yeah, but Orlando Brown's doing worse than the left tackle, you know, Donovan Smith or Morris, you know, in terms of pressure and stuff allowed. Obviously, Juwan Taylor, you know, not being disciplined enough to – you know, refrain from his early jumps or holding certainly kills stuff. But I do think that Juwan Taylor ultimately is a better right tackle than Andrew Wiley was. But, you know, it's, again, goes back to Bieniemy being the guy that would get on someone. Like, we didn't see this lack of discipline stuff happen. Like, sure, week 1, Juwan Taylor has offside stuff, fine. That stuff wouldn't happen in week 2 with Bieniemy there. Like, that would have been nipped. So, you know, I think that's obviously a part of the problem. I mean, like, I think Dante Hall went on Good Morning Football and said something similar to that. It said, you know, you have to start at the top and work down when you have such a big problem like this. And, you know, when Bieniemy was there, we didn't have guys lining up wrong. We didn't have wide receivers leading the league with 25+ drop passes. None of the stuff that has ultimately spoiled the Chiefs offense and, you know, cultivated in this occurred. So, I mean, the only change is Nagy. So, I mean, I firmly believe in that. And I think that that is, you know, one of the changes that will need to be made. And I'm sure that, you know, Veach and Reed and the internal minds in that office know that, as well as, you know, spending money to remedy the lack of weapons.
Hey, Kerry. Hey, one other thing as well. And first off, this is for you. This is a game ball. You know, so game ball for you, Alex. For that, I will say that, and maybe it's me, but the way that the defensive line, in particular, the ends with the tackles, the way that they handled Mahomes that last game reminded me of what Mahomes had to suffer through when the fake Pirates had him in the Super Bowl. They kept him pretty much in check. Okay, he did occasionally have to use his legs to run. He ran for at least 3, 4, 5 first downs because he
was the leading rusher with 53 yards. That's how bad it was.
He had him on lockdown in the back, so he was the only guy that was unaccounted for. But for the most part, they kept him where he had to do those short runs for the first downs. And so it was just amazing for me to see that, especially after the game in Vegas, where every time that, you know, when the Raiders were up 14-0, and then all of a sudden it's like it's tied and then we're losing. Okay. And that's why I said the Raiders have had the Chiefs number the time in Vegas, as well as the time in Kansas City last year. Now, granted, the time in Vegas last year, man, it was a slaughter. My God, it was a slaughter. So it was actually an entertaining game, and that's why I think that when the Raiders win on defense, we haven't won on defense since we were winning Super Bowls, and that's amazing right there.
Yeah. No, and I do think Max Crosby is one of the more perfect edge defenders to go against Mahomes because the guy doesn't quit. So it's so hard for Mahomes to scramble around and do his magic when Crosby literally is going 110% for a damn full minute, wrapping around everyone. And so there was a couple times that he was able to get away, but honestly, I mean, that's been one of the better teams at keeping him from doing that stuff. And obviously,
with sacks, the other guy had 3 sacks.
Yeah,
rolling him right into Kuz.
And that's part of it. He knows where Crosby is. I mean, everyone does, right? And he's gonna try to stay away from him, but it's hard. It's hard to do that. Patriot. I think whatever team. I think when we saw what the enemy did with Howell and Washington, I think whatever team that's looking for its next, franchise staple QB, I think the enemy should be the forefront of the person you want to bring in to do that. And I mean, kudos to O'Connell for winning, but he's not your quarterback next year. So
well, you know what? Probably true, but he's a damn good plug and play backup in a real offensive system. And because he's rookie this year, and he will only get better with more reps and whatnot, but I think that he has the mental capacity to be that plug and play, kind of like the Don Strock or the Earl Morralls. I know you people are looking at me like, who the hell is he talking about? I'm old, okay? Look them up. Earl Morrall and Don Strock, okay? Those guys were the plug and play backup quarterbacks for Johnny Unitas and Dan Marino, okay? And those guys were it, right? Because you just throw them into a game, and they came in and they won it for you when your other quarterback wasn't doing well. Wade Wilson was the same way as well. But I think he has the capabilities to do that. But he's a rookie, and he's gonna do the thing, and that's why I said they didn't let him lose the game. People were bitching about Jimmy Garbaggio to come in and win the game. He didn't need to come in and win the game because the kid didn't do anything to lose the game. And kudos to Zeus Zamir White showing what a Raiders running back by committee works for. And the kid ran for it was like
140
yards, 130, yeah. And
135.
He got one.
I mean, big chunk of it was the
last one last play. Yeah, but hey, it was the icing on the cake. It was. Oh, yeah. I thought it was a very enjoyable game, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's still. With all the bad that happened, right, it still came down to a 6-point game with 2:30 to go. Chiefs still very much could have, made it more of a game. And I don't blame the defense for not stopping the run because I know that, we've talked about this before, talking about other teams or, like the Jets or whatever. Your offense can only screw you over so many times before you're not like you can't help them out. It would have been perfect world great with how the defense was playing. They stop them and get the ball back with before the 2-minute warning and maybe make a drive. Probably not because they'd run 3 straight screens and then go for it on 4th down and Mahomes would throw it 5 yards past someone. But I understand why that didn't happen because it's just like, well, offense has screwed them over so many times this game. Like you can't, and they've been out there so many times. Also putting them in bad positions before that, literally going 0 for 2 on 4th down conversion, attempts. So I mean, yeah, I totally get why they wouldn't stop them, even though everyone knew they were running the ball. Right? That's just the cultivating moment of this. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's a like pride thing or not, but it just seems that the Chiefs, from an offensive standpoint, can't understand that, hey, we have a top 5 defense that for the most part can kind of contain any offense and any team's number 1 wide receiver. Why can't we just develop a game plan where we don't put them in bad positions and instead we got to try to do all the same fancy crap we used to do with, the chicken turds instead of the chicken salad. So.
I said like I said, 14 points within the 35 because the pick six was about the 35 and in, I think, right? He threw it.
Yeah.
The guy picked it off around the 35 and ran it in on the pick six. And of course, the fumble was like around the 7-yard line.
8-yard line.
Second week in a row where Big Mugger comes in there and boom, 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 boom.
Bilal.
Yeah, Bilal Nichols, baby.
Bilal.
That was needed. So again, it was, and again, like you said, that last when they scored that the second touchdown, and I'm like, wow, and this is when I'm squirming on the seat,
right?
Because
that's the difference in this team versus teams in the past. Like people are watching with, we're like, I refuse to think that this game's over because they beat the Bills in 13 seconds. I was like, guys, that's a totally different team. This team has to do basically sell their soul just to get within 6 points.
Right.
and then, we don't see anything else happen. Or if they're in a situation where it's there, someone drops the ball or it lines up wrong or, everything else in between, but make something happen. So I'm at my wit's end here. Just got to tie my knot in the rope and kick the chair out at this point.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And again, I thank the viewers for Alex actually going over the football aspects. I tried to throw a little in there. I thank Alex for doing the football aspect. I'm just giddy as a 13-year-old who goes to a hooker house and says, "Hey, we're going to give you a one-way for free because you're so young and cute." I mean, that's the best thing that could ever happen, and that's my ecstasy for this week. Because 2 weeks in a row. And Coach, I let you go last week because it was last week. We kicked the living crap out of the Garglers, and there's my boy right there. I had to do it because I let you go last week.
He brought it back, baby.
I'm back, baby. We kicked the living crap out of the Garglers, which gets rid of their coach. And I know Coach is thanking us for doing that. And everybody was saying that the Raiders scored 63. I said, no, the Raiders offense scored 49. With 14 on the defense. The Raiders defense scored 14 on Monday, and that was the game as well. So you got to put things in perspective. If our defense can do what they do and the offense gets better, and I don't think that there's enough time this year because again, we got to win out. We got a double was it a double-decker horse show that we got to go through the last 2 weeks of the season. Didn't see how I did that? The double-decker horse show. Okay, that you guys can figure it out. That's right. But we can do that, and then we got to have a lot of other things happen. So it's possible, but we got to do our part first. But I tell you, I'm very proud of being a Raiders fan and not having to worry about, when was the last time the Raiders did anything or even looked like a real football team? We looked like a real football team the last 2 weeks.
Fair enough.
I have a question about it's a general question to the panel, but it's more directly at the Raiders at this moment because they're in a predicament that I'm going to describe. So, how do you feel about as a fan? How do you feel about your team when you have a certain injuries at certain key positions, or you don't have that guy that you really needed at key positions, and you happen to kind of fall into a situation where you could make the playoffs? What do you feel like is the end game? What would you rather have? Would you rather make the playoffs and get beat in the first round, pretty handily because you have a backup quarterback, or would you rather not make the playoffs and have a better draft pick to help yourself in the future?
Well, that second part went right out the window because, and I am on record saying, and I will admit to saying this, and I'm sorry to say it, but I said I wanted to see the Raiders lose all these games, but I wanted the team to play well to build for next year. I wanted to see some really good team play and maybe lose, just like, we lost to the Garglers by, a field goal. And damn it, we went to Kansas City and friggin' Butker, did whatever. But that's gone. I mean, that pipe dream is gone. So now you just got to ride out the surf, man. You're hanging 10. You're in Maui, and you're an ugly howley like me doing the pipeline, baby. And I'm on that big 1960s board, the one that's like 12 million feet long. I'm on the old board, and I'm riding the pipeline and go, yeah, go, old man. But we got to go for it. We do what we can. We get as strong as we can, because with the Raiders' first round picks.
Oh yeah, y'all can draft in the first round for anything, but I'm just curious as in general. So I mean, it probably don't matter. The Raiders,
they're gonna get Kirk Cousins, baby.
It don't matter really from a Raiders perspective picks, but just in general fandom question is this: would you? Because it did when Herbert before Herbert got hurt, but even after when he got hurt, I was like, oh, that's it. I don't want to win any more games because again, we need as much draft capital as we could possibly get. If we get a top 5 pick, we could literally sell that and get a king's ransom for our future. We could trade a couple of guys, get some mid-round picks, and get some value for that top 5 pick, and we'll be golden going forward. So the idea of playing hard but not winning, because the Bears do it every week, the Cardinals do it a week, we've done it. You can play tough, but you just happen to. There it is, baby. There it is. Tactfully tanking. Okay, so yeah, I would rather have a good showing and lose than win games and then be sitting in the middle of the draft and be picking from the middle of the pack.
I'm going to say something, Coach, and this is because I had to check it out last night to make sure that I was speaking correctly. Okay, the New York Jets do have a first-round pick this next year.
Yes,
it's not. It does not belong. It does not belong to the Packers. It doesn't belong to the Packers because, and I think that was because of they had it in the contract that old boy who got knocked out
70%, 70%,
right, 60% of the snaps or something.
He got knocked out 4 plays into the thing, and I'm like, well,
you think Devontae Adams is going to go for a first-round pick?
I think so because the Jets and that old man that is calling shots to Salah and everything else say, I need my boy Devontae. And if they do that, the Raiders say, yeah, we'll let you have Devontae for 1 and a 3, and I think it'll happen.
You're not going
to. You think the Jets will trade a 1 and a 3 for Devontae?
No. Yes.
Nah, I highly doubt that.
I think so. I think
you'll have to take Lazard, Cobb, and
right. You have to take all the other. Yeah.
They screwed themselves, kind of like this guy kind of did on certain draft picks for and collateral for one player, and we'll obviously get into that later in the show.
Oh, the Russell Wilson trade, yeah.
Okay, because they got screwed into doing this is because of one player or one entity saying what they could do. I firmly believe that guy who is the forgotten member of the Allstate, right? Or the State Farm, Allstate, State Farm, whatever. The forgotten member of the State Farm production crew, because he hasn't done diddly this year, is going to say, I want Adams.
He's out.
I want Adams. And if he's still there, they're gonna get Adams, and it's going to cost them a penny.
I'm not sure.
Good luck.
I'm not sure if that's the case. The other thing is that I don't think you're going to get anything to the level you think you're going to get for him because of the contract.
Not contract and age.
Yeah,
let's move over those on there. Contract and age.
Well, that remains to be seen.
And stats this year.
The last 2 years. I mean, they've been down in comparison with his Green Bay stats, man.
Because he's in a Mickey Mouse offense, courtesy of Nick Fired.
Hey, you're not a victim. You're a volunteer. You signed up for that.
Hey, we did. But look at the stats and how everybody went down. And that's the offense we're still in now. We're in the McFired offense with a few tweaks from some people. I think they said Matt Gase might be helping out, that there are other people that are helping out with Bo, our Bo Hardigree, who's our offensive coordinator. He's setting himself up for later. but they have some tweaks and whatnot. Hell, the friggin' Chiefs did a tweak of the touchdown the Raiders had the week prior with was it Pacheco that did that one? Yeah, it was a Raiders. Well, granted, I'm sure that Andy Reid had it in his barrel somewhere. Okay, but the Raiders did it the week prior. Okay, so the offense is a Mickey Mouse offense that we have to play out the string with. Okay, that's why I said if the Raiders, it's a big if, and I sound like the guy in the movie Apocalypse. Is it Apocalypse now? Yeah. Remember, man, the two middle initials of life is if. Yeah, big ifs. The Raiders do what they can. You know,
really casting out for that movie reference.
Well, I'm just saying, man. But hey, you know, when you have Dennis Hopper playing that role, that I effed up the line, but that's true. Okay. And by the way, for those that don't know, almost every bit of that movie where Marlon Brando spoke was all ad lib. All of it. And Dennis Hopper, for that matter. That last half of the movie, they just turned on the rolls, said, "Let them talk."
So I wanted to quickly jump in on
absolutely Bawana.
Yeah, so I wanted to jump in on
we're not better than that. We're not worse than the NFC South. Though. I just want to put that out there.
No,
we're damn close though.
So, Coach, I wanted to answer your question and then throw over to you. I do think that it really puts you in a difficult spot when you are thin at a specific position. And, for example, I'll kind of throw over to your Chargers here, and I think it's a great segue for you to kind of look at, which is you're never going to have a quarterback on your roster who's as good as your starter. It's just not going to happen. However, when you have such a precipitous drop-off between your starter and your backup, which is what the Chargers' current position is right now, you're just basically saying, and we're done, right? And that is why you're starting to see this huge trend in the NFL of acquiring these upper kind of 1B type quarterbacks as backups when the team is perhaps in contention. So that's a huge trend that we're seeing in the NFL right now. And I also think the Chargers have found out the hard way that when you lose your starting center, who is so critical on the offensive side of the ball, that the odds of you being able to replace him is virtually nil. It just is. It's virtually nil. And so you guys have now lost both your starting quarterback and your starting center.
And I would argue that that's a byproduct of one or the other. One, by losing Lindsey, lost Herbert because they couldn't protect him after Lindsey was gone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that's a big deal, and I think that's a really interesting point, and I certainly kind of agree with that as your kind of leading question there that you kind of asked to the panel. So I definitely do agree. With that in mind, let's hear what the Chargers game and all that stuff, and right in the middle of the show, we'll dig right into the Broncos news and the Broncos game because I think they kind of do directly correlate and tie together.
You want me to discuss the game? Do I have to? No,
Chargers lost. It's done.
Yeah, Chargers lost. We're on the next week. But yeah, I do think there's one thing that's glaring. Cool Cat, what's happening? I do think that you can see the difference in effort from week to week. Like I think it's pretty clear what I alluded to last week about the fact that they just flat out gave up on Staley and they wanted him gone. They had enough. It was one of those things. I've reached my boiling point in this abusive relationship, and we've got to just cut bait and do whatever we got to do, whatever grandiose, act of whatever I need to do to get him gone. It's the reason why they completely and utterly, took the foot off the gas or lack thereup of effort when it came down to last week's game.
I agree.
They played the Bills completely tough. Go ahead.
Can we throw back to a comment? Up here, we threw a comment on the screen about the Stewart here, this one here. I think this comment is somewhat fitting to what you just said, and I think that this would be a good tie-in for this comment here.
And Stu is right on that.
I disagree actually with Stewart, and I think that if he's being honest with himself, that he would agree with what Coach just said. When you
I think in our situation is completely differently. Than if you know the coach is going to be there, you're not worried about the coach per se. You just know your season is lost. Like if you're 5 and whatever at like week 15, then you know it's over. Like you might be playing to put decent tape out there and different product for your individual self and your individual performances, but you're not worried about winning. I don't think winning is on your mind. Like let's win these last 3 games just for sake of pride. No, I think I want to put good tape out there. I want to look good, but I don't care if we win or lose. We're not going anywhere. So I think that particular nuance is different because again, in our situation, we wanted the coach fired. The team had a mutiny. I think they all got together personally and got on the group text, chat, whatever they did, and say, look, we got to do whatever we got to do to get this guy out of here. So we got to lose bad to the Raiders for 1 game. We got to lose bad to the Raiders, and make the front office have to force their hand and say, this guy got to go. And then we get back to regular business and put good tape on the field and put good tape on for our future, our future career. But again, I think this particular instance was just a one-off that we had to get Staley out of there, and then we can go back to regular business. But because you can see the effort and the difference in the mindset in the game that they had against the Bills versus they had against the Raiders. They completely utterly, they was just out there going through the motions. But if they play hard, they had actually have an opportunity to beat the Bills. So again, if you're in the game and you're fighting throughout the entirety of the game, you can see that throughout the entirety of the game. Where as though in the first 5 minutes, you knew the Raiders game was over. You can tell. I mean, come on, the idea of them intercepting screen passes, that happens hardly ever. I'm not sure if I've ever seen it in the pros.
That was wild.
Yeah, in the pros. I've never seen it happen in the pros.
That was a Madden play. That's when you throw the controller at the damn wall.
Right.
Now, wait a second, though. That Jones pick 6 was the last score that we had. Not the.
No, I wasn't calling when it will happen. I was just saying in general how the plays were with things that happened in the game. Just you can tell there was a lack of effort. And my point is it was a complete lack of effort there. It's the reason why those things happen. Those things only happen in high school and boys club. They don't happen in the pros. I've never seen it happen in the pros before. So that case in point why things are different between week to week because they gave up in that game. They said we got to look bad and make Spanos make the call and get this guy out of here. That's what has to happen.
Okay, and I will say to a point that a similar mutiny occurred in Vegas this year, and whatever week it was, where the players got together, and it wasn't just the current players. It was Tim Brown and Charles Woodson and a couple other the old timers that said, "Get that mother out now." And I didn't say it for the gestures. But it was that get that mother out now. And
you see the difference. You see the difference for the very next week. And again, we didn't win the game, but again, we were in a Bills team that was hot. They were the hottest team in the NFL practically. And to put toe-to-toe with them for 4 quarters tells you that literally the level of effort was different from week to week. That's my only point. That's the only thing I'm trying to drive home here is the level of effort was different. Again, I'm not a proponent of having to win because we already know our season's over. Justin Herbert's hurt. Corey Lindsey and a bunch of other people are hurt for the season. We're not going anywhere. So yes, we can put on a good show, but the idea of winning games is not a priority in this situation. I think that's the delineation between the two.
And that's
if you want to have a mutiny 1 week and then you want to be able to be a professional next week, you can do both. You can do both.
Yeah, we'll say that's what I think it was. Stewart says that no pro, and I agree with Stewart on this. No pro will go out there and deliberately do things to lose, that the effort might not be the same. And so it's 2 different things, Richie. It's 2 different things.
No.
You could put, right there, buddy, because I'm saying it. Stuart Schweigert, you're trying to tell me that you, and this is why Stewart had that issue with some other broadcaster who I won't name. You're trying to say that you know more than a guy who went in the NFL.
Yes, because if you don't put effort into the game, then you're not going to win the game. It's literally that simple. I'm sorry. There's no. As an example, if you're a safety and let's look at a veteran, like look at a guy like Kareem Jackson, who's like year 14 in the league or something like that. He's going to obviously try to. He's going to try to play another year or two, right? So you're going to want to keep yourself healthy. If you know that your team is in the Chargers position right now, there is no hope. You're not going to get to the playoffs. You're not going to get the ring, which you're so desperately wanting or seeking. Then your next best thing as a pro is to keep yourself healthy so you can potentially
protect yourself.
To protect yourself.
But if you half-ass it, that's when you get effing injured. When you don't put out the effort, that's when you get injured. That's the point.
Yes.
There's nuance there too. It's not.
But I don't think the half-ass is in
nuance.
terms of effort. It's like, oh, I know that they're going to run this, but I'm going to get over there later.
Yeah, exactly. There's very nuanced.
I'm gonna take 2 steps to my right, so I'm just a little bit late.
I'm a little late on the play, and then I just happen to get in my way.
Right.
Happen to get in my way.
Like the Marcus Peters Olay crap, which got his ass fired.
Exactly.
That happens. You can see missed tackles, guys not having the level of effort they would if they were in contention. There's nuance to this at all.
And you know what? Marcus Peters can suck from under, because you saw what happened when we got rid of his narrow ass and what we did when we put effort in. Okay. There's like you said, there are nuances there, but I will agree with Stuart that no professional will go out of their way to tank.
I think that's what you have to say. You have to say that as a professional.
Okay.
You don't want to go out there and say that admittedly.
I mean, that's like the Dolphins, right? A few years ago, when they were clearly trying to be bad to get to it, but they weren't saying that out loud.
Everybody knew that. Everybody knew it.
Brought it up, and then that's one of the reasons why he has that big settlement with the team, because he was correct.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
But the players
it happens. As a former athlete, as a coach, I know exactly when people are dogging and when they're giving a lot of effort. It's a very nuanced situation.
Here, Coach, this is really the way I look at it. If the players are not putting 100% effort in, you need to look no further than the last game of McDaniels and the first game of Antonio Pierce.
It was totally different.
I mean, you were literally a different team, and you had all of the same players. And
they almost beat the Bills.
And the last game that the Chargers played was Staley, and then the game that they just played, you were literally looking at the exact same players.
We were leading in points of this game. We were leading the game. Like we were beating the Bills with a backup quarterback and a bunch of backup receivers.
Right, night and day. I'm like that's my point, right? Is you're talking professional players, clear difference in effort, and I'm sorry, but you cannot tell me that that's not done on purpose. They're just not liking the circumstances and scenarios, so they're not feeling invigorated. They're not wanting to play. They're not going to play. They're gonna accidentally get there a little bit late. Now they're not going to be as blatant as Peters by basically saying like
hooray!
Like they're not going to be like that. But
Peters is just a head case, man. That guy always has been.
My point is that it may not be a Marcus Peters blatancy in terms of what you see on the field, but it's certainly going to be noticeable when you know what you're looking at and when you're looking for. And you look no further than what the Raiders are right now. You have a new coach in place. The players want to play for him, and they are showing out to play for him. Yet you have all the same players on the team. So why didn't you have that result before?
Okay, and I want to ask Coach what Dark was asking. So you're saying that they lost deliberately so bad that they gave the game away to the Raiders, that the Raiders didn't deserve any of that?
I'm not taking any credit from the Raiders. Y'all misconstruing my point. It doesn't matter.
Well,
it could have been the Chiefs.
I wanted to ask.
It could have been the Chiefs when we were playing. We could have been the Broncos. It mattered who the opponent was. It couldn't just been the Jets. We couldn't have just got undressed by the Jets. It had to be the opponent that made it personal. And y'all were just up at the time. Did the team to say, well, look, we got the very next divisional game we got is the Raiders. So this is the time that we're going to completely utterly look bad in front of national television. This is a solo game on Thursday night. Nobody else is watching this game. There's no distractions. Everybody's focused on that one game. This is a prime time to say we're going to do this and do this now. That way you have to fire this guy. There's no excuse after that. You have to pull the plug. It's just an opportunity that they seized. It doesn't matter was the Raiders, the Broncos, or the Chiefs, but it had to be a personal moment in time where the Spanos family was completely utterly embarrassed on national television by their football team, and they feel like it was a coach that had to lay on the sword for it. It has nothing to do with the Raiders. I'm not taking anything away from the Raiders.
The Spanos family has been embarrassed about that excrement that they've been putting on the field since San Diego. So don't tell me, Grant, it was like you said, it was the cherry on top. But you mean to tell me that the Spanos family gives a crap? Really about that team? I know for a fact all they care about is what's in their ledgers, man. And that's hard for me to say because I know
that's a lot of owners in this league. That's not it's not completely solely just the Spanos family.
I get you. You are correct. But you know what? But you're saying that the Spanos family cared? No. They had to.
They made it so they had to care. That's my point. Like if you're so hands off, and I said this on the podcast plenty of times that they don't fire coaches in season. So what do we do? We know that everybody in the world knows that.
Point to point that out.
I had to make an overarching and overwhelming point that they have to do this now. We cannot wait any longer. Forget to the end of the season. He has to go. That's the point. Yeah. It has nothing to do with the Raiders. It's not about the Raiders. Y'all make it about personal. It's not about the Raiders. It's not about y'all.
Okay, well,
it could have been any team in this division. It had to happen at the moment where it was nobody else watching, but people were watching Thursday Night Football. And that was it. Well, it was a solo game, it was a divisional game, and it was an embarrassment. So he had to go.
Isn't it amazing that the two teams that have fired coaches in season? I'm forgetting the Panthers because I thought we were the only ones.
That was just
and you know what?
That's the shit show.
That's
it's smoldering.
And that's uncalled for. Really, I mean,
I agree. Frank Wright fell on the sword for no reason. I think he was probably one person that shouldn't have been fired out of his whole group.
Right, because McFire needed to go, and Staley should have went about a year and a half ago.
He should have went after that 27-0 debacle. He should have been gone then. That was an embarrassment in its own right. That people still talk about that right now. It's a year later. So I totally agree with you. But again, people are saying that it was about the Raiders. Y'all played well. Yeah, I'm not taking anything away from y'all. Y'all did what y'all had to do. Y'all put up 63 points. It's not no bad team can put up 63 points no matter what you do.
Yeah.
And by the way,
it's a decent team to do that. I'm not taking nothing away from the Raiders. All I'm saying is the situation was what it was. And again, going back to you can put parallels between y'all game with McDaniel's last game and y'all next game versus our last game with Staley versus our next game with a new interim coach. Two totally different teams. It seemed like the weight was lifted off of people's shoulders, and now we can play free. We can just get back to playing football and being professionals. That's really all it was about. That's the only point I'm trying to make here.
Yeah, and Alex, I got this for you. John, he did not give excuses. John Leon was asking about
That's what I was laughing at. Coach is getting the smug treatment now, not me.
Here's the point. John, Alex, to his credit, did not smug out. He said, it happened. We lost, and the Raiders, Raiders did everything that they needed to do, and it was the lack of a Kansas City offense that basically was turned the tide here because the Raiders had no offense either, but it was the Raiders. He gave credit where credit was due. John, I just wanted to make sure that because John wasn't here. I got you, Alex.
Yeah.
Okay. Your smugness was swept out the window real early. So there you go.
I'm only smug when it's warranted.
Yeah. I got you, man.
So I thought so, Coach. I'll move over to the Broncos now, and we'll cover off the two. I'll do a brief kind of review of the last game, and then we'll go right into the news that obviously the AFC West fans here really want to talk about. And so obviously the Broncos had a game against the Patriots. I was very forthcoming on the show last week. I truly saw this as a 50-50 game, and it literally was a 50-50 game, except it was more like a 70-30 game in the Patriots' favor. What we saw, again, was a coach trying to overcome the deficiencies of a player that was running the show, and obviously the news that came out today all but kind of proves that comment, I think, true. What we saw against the Patriots was a very, very, very gifted defensive play caller in Bill Belichick, recognizing on the broad, high level, kind of 5,000 foot view, looking down at things, what Sean Payton was trying to do and what he was trying to cover up. And Belichick literally just started taking all of the key things away. And
Yeah, that's what he's known for.
And he is just that good, right? Like, I'm sorry. People dog on Belichick, but man, the dude is still he might not be great at the whole offensive side of the ball. But
or just overall personnel change.
Personnel, but I'm sorry, he kills it on the defensive side of the ball.
Oh, no argument there.
I figured if anyone could expose the Russ, playing better narrative, it'd be
Bill.
Belichick.
Yeah, it's Bill. Yeah. And so what we saw from that game was interior pressure, forcing Russ to basically escape early and then bringing delayed blitzes on a regular basis, which basically kill Russ every time. And you also have Russ, who's incapable of reading the field to kind of predict where the ball needs to go. He's I need to see the dude open to throw the guy open and make that throw. And Bill just basically took all that stuff away, and it was just a slaughter, right? Like it actually, the score looked more competitive than what it really was. If you're going to be perfectly honest, looking back at the game itself. And so my big thing looking at this is that little compact drive where we went kind of back-to-back touchdown and 2-point conversion. In my opinion, back to my previous weeks that I've been on the show, that was all Sean Payton scripting things to make things work and Russ simply executing them. In my opinion, that was not Russ, ad-libbing and doing all the things. Am I shocked to learn that Russ is still trash? No.
No. You've been saying it for 2 years.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing this for years. I couldn't lie if I wanted to because there's video evidence of me saying everything.
It's on tape.
It's on tape. I did not want Russell Wilson.
Check the tape. There you go. That's what I was looking for.
I didn't want him. And I've been very, very clear about that. And again, I'll even point back to the things of why we're not doing well. We need to fix the interior of the offensive line. We need to get a proper right tackle. And I said back when we made the Russ trade, again, go back and watch the film, I wish we hadn't traded away those picks because I wanted interior defensive line, I wanted interior offensive line, and I wanted a bloody right tackle.
And those picks turned into some pretty good corners and
a lot of good players.
Actually, the funny thing is that the one pick
Drew Lock looks pretty good.
Turned out to be the right tackle of the Seahawks, who's
Charles Cross.
Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty darn good, right?
Yeah, pretty solid.
Russell Wilson is not trash. He's not great, and he is
He's not Jimmy Garbajopolis. He's better than Jimmy Garbajopolis.
Russ is that like bottom end of starting tier quarterback who is that guy that just annoys you. He can't overcome all the things, and he's never going to make anyone better. And the problem with that is you can't pay the dude $250 million or $50 million a year because he's not going to elevate the rest of the players on the team. He's basically just going to be a guy that's going to get the job done, and you need all the extra money to put other guys around him. Simple, not hard. Okay? And that was Captain has been with me since, for years now. I've literally said the same thing since the beginning. It's literally just that simple.
I'll tell you why. Yeah, and I'll tell you why. And because this guy gave that. Oh, sorry, wrong hand. That guy a ration of crap for all of the money that they were giving to Patrick Mahomes, and he was
turned around and gave him more.
And then he's like, when Alex got a chance to say shoes on the other foot, he said, "How you like me now, bitch?" Because
respectfully, of course.
Yes. Yeah.
With respect.
Oh, and I still believe that Denver made all the moves they did last year to do what the Jets did this last offseason and get Rodgers. That fell through, and they said, "Well, crap, we need to get something. We need to make some kind of splash at QB." And Russ was option 1B. which unfortunately, just didn't pan out. And I always think Russ, he's always been a good QB, but I think his success, he was given more credit than what was due to him due to the Legion of Boom and, Marshawn Lynch and other components around him that people kind of forgot about. Because once you saw those things fall off, it wasn't like Seattle was still up in the upper echelon of competing to get to the Super Bowl.
They were double-digit wins. They were double-digit.
Well, yeah,
wins.
But at that time, the NFC West was pretty trash. The 49ers weren't good. The Rams weren't good. The Cardinals still sucked. But it's not like they got to the playoffs and were in the NFC Championship, every year. So I think, that he kind of got more credit at that. And now that you take some of those components away on top of putting them in a new scheme and with a new coach who, has different ideologies than typically how Russ plays, just don't see the same product on the field.
The short answer to this question would be Justin Fields. I believe
at least he can run.
So, and I'm gonna preface it based on who the head coach is, and I think this is important. Yeah. Sean Payton clearly liked Drew Brees, but really wanted Drew Brees to be more mobile and accurate in order to expand the playbook on the offensive side of the ball. Sean Payton can certainly see which way the wind is blowing when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. And also, because all the rules completely favor the quarterback and basically force defenders to, rest their head down on a pillow before they ask him to take a sack, it literally lends itself to a guy like Justin Fields who can scramble when needed, run when needed, but also has the ability to throw the ball both intermediate and deep routes as required. And I think Justin Fields is a guy that can kind of facilitate and do those sorts of things.
Yeah. When you look at both of them too, and they both are not good at reading the field,
right.
But at least Fields has the athleticism to move the ball.
Right. And so, if you're saying would I have to take one or the other, I think if I had the option of is there a door C, I would probably say, depending on what's behind door C, I would probably be more interested in that. Because I think what we're seeing as a Denver Broncos fan right now is having kind of, when you juxtapose like a guy like Peyton Manning, which is an unfair comparison to any other quarterback, but let's just use it anyway. He could literally scan the field and I already know 5 routes that I'm going to in like a millisecond. It was really remarkable to see kind of the processing level.
You could change plays just based on how they were aligned.
Exactly. And Russ doesn't do it, right? Russ can't see the field. He can't adjust. He can't do any of those sorts of things. And Justin Fields has all of the same issues that Russ does when it comes to reading what's on the field, no pun intended. And so I think that's a bit of an issue or a big issue. And so I think that door C would be the better option for the Broncos. But if those are my 2 options, I'm going youth and options rather than a guy that I've already seen the limitations of.
Justin's cheaper too.
Well, and also on capital that you'd have to give up, right? Because the Broncos need so much more than just a quarterback. That again, we've already seen how that plays out when you sell the farm to get a quarterback, and it works out well the way we're in right now. Not a good thing. What I've been basically screaming from the rooftops from since the day we got Russell Wilson was no. You need to build both the defensive line and the offensive line first, and then you sell the farm to bring the quarterback in, because then you don't need all of those picks in order to bolster your roster. Whereas right now the Broncos did it in reverse, and let's just say it didn't work out particularly well.
And actually,
here's my question with you.
I give the Chargers credit because that's what they kind of did, because they built their team up before they brought Herbert in, saying we got a team for you, and it's worked out minus some really crappy coaching.
Well, luckily they had Rivers too until they decided they didn't want him anymore.
They had a whole football team with Rivers and his kids. All they had to do was put the kids in. And he play offense, defense, and special teams, man.
So question for you, Richie. Obviously, the benching foretelling to some degree that they don't plan to move on with Russ. Do you think it's a cut thing, or they're good? I mean, do you think there's a trade suitor out there, and what team do you think that would be?
I think there are very, very few trade partners, and I mean very few trade partners for Russ. I mean, it may be, you know what it might be? I think it might be a scenario where the Broncos pull what the Texans did with Brock Osweiler. I'm thinking that the Broncos may package a pick with Russ in order to allow someone to trade for him. So like something like package like a fourth or a third to say, take his contract, please.
I'm just trying to think of what teams, because I think like
the Commanders maybe.
Yeah.
The Commanders might be
like
one.
Giants wouldn't do it because they paid Jones, so they're not.
They need to do it though. They need to do something else.
Yeah.
They need something.
Maybe Atlanta might do that. Who knows?
There's like 3 or 4 teams that are in that kind of spot, right? And Atlanta's an interesting one as well because they're playing well enough that they're not going to be able to be drafting high enough.
They're at 10 right now.
And so, but they still need the quarterback. Like they're doing well across the board, but they don't have the quarterback, and that could be something that might be of interest to them, even if he's a 2-year.
It's long.
Yeah,
it's a long one. Man.
That's what she said.
Yeah, damn it. Damn it.
Patriot knows.
There you go. Look, see. That man took my nasty comment of the night. Love you, Coach. Love you. That's definitely what she said.
Yeah. So, but ultimately, I actually think that this is a
long, baby.
I do wonder if this is a buyout scenario, and I don't know if there's any rules or anything against it. That's actually what I don't know. Is if a team can outright buy a contract.
Yeah.
But I
John,
don't think
his contract is through 2028.
Yeah.
I said a long time ago, it's going to be very punitive to trade or cut him at this point. The contract hasn't even started yet. The contract starts this year coming. So good luck. Good luck.
Yeah.
Actually, no, Max, that's not true. Subway attempted the Danger Witch and it failed as well.
Danger Witch.
Well, yeah. That was just a terrible commercial. I don't know.
Yes, it was.
Going to be good.
Yes,
it didn't last long, right?
I think Russ made that a commercial himself. I think he went in and said, "Hey, I got a better idea. My guys put this together. Let's do this."
I have no clue what you're talking about. I must have missed that day of school. Seriously.
Oh man, you're lucky. You need to look it up.
This is from Albert Breer himself. So presumably Russell Wilson is cut. His deal will cost the Broncos $124 million for 2 years, when he was already under contract for those years at the time of the trade for $51 million at a $73 million
Perfect timing, Patriot. Perfect timing, Patriot.
Exactly. Hey, it's only going to cost the Raiders.
It's a write-off.
No, that's the thing. This isn't the NBA. The NBA is about how much money you have. The NFL is how much cap money you have. That is there's a very big difference in that.
At least Garbaciopoulos is going to be cut post June 1st, so it's 13 and 13 because he's on a 26.
That is that's a far different cry than 124 million.
I got you. And Coach, what was the 30 million for JT Jack? You got rid of that crap too, and you didn't care. You wanted him gone. But
that's a $30 million cap hit versus one. That's a whole different conversation. You talking about
one of the most lucrative contracts in the league.
Yes,
I got you. I'm not crying.
What we need to do is the NFL needs to bring in an expansion team. They'll just forcefully make them take Russ, put them in Mexico City. We'll forget about them. And then we're good.
So Spot Track has an 85 million dead cap.
Well,
Spot Track has it as an 85 million dead cap
right now.
No, so cutting him, it says if you cut him in 2023, it's 107. But if you keep him until the beginning of the 2024 year, is as I'm reading it, assuming I'm correct in how I'm reading it.
Which starts in March.
Which is March.
Yes.
So you basically wait till March 1st and then cut him. Then it's an $85 million dead cap. Now, I mean, by the way, I'm not saying, hey, that's so much better.
No, it's not.
85 is better than 120, though.
I mean, but still.
It's better than 120 and it's better than 107. But it's still it's all bad. Like, yeah, it's just bad. Yeah, it's just bad. So for those of you who are wondering why the Broncos are doing what they're doing, if Russ gets hurt in this season, it guarantees his salary for the next 2 seasons, which is detrimental to the team, especially if they know that they're likely not wanting him to stay on the roster, at which point it's going to cost them more than $85 million. So it's basically this piece that is, you're kind of damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So you may as well take the most cost-effective option.
Did you read Don's post? Did you read Don's post about the rift between the front office and Russ? Peyton
they
and the
asked
front office
him
with
to
the
drop
Russ.
the guarantees.
Yeah, and he said no.
Kick rocks.
Yeah.
Eat sand. I mean, but why would I do that? Why would I do that as a player? Why would I do that?
Yeah. And
hey, Russ, we'll let you play if you don't guarantee your money.
Right.
Okay,
yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. F you.
Behind this offensive line, sure.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's gonna happen.
And I also seem to recall that there was a team last year. I can't remember who it was.
That was the Raiders.
Quiet. You're stealing the punchline, mother. Okay. That they shit canned their quarterback for the last 2 years after Christmas, so that they would ensure that God forbid they got a hangnail. That they got a hangnail that they wouldn't have to pay him. So somebody else picked up that grad awful contract. By the way, did you see the picture of the Saints fan where he has the car jersey? It says used car
I saw that
for sale. I put it on there, man. So again, I'm gonna use this again. How you like me now, bitch? There you go. Just I
think what's really apparent here is that we're living in a simulation, because this time last year Carr was benched for Stidham. This time this year, Wilson's benched for Stidham. We're in the Matrix.
We are. Yes. We all have batteries in our back. We're living in the Matrix.
Wake up.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that I will say that hasn't really been discussed all that much within Broncos country, and I think it needs to be discussed more, is the new Powers, who I was actually quite keen on in the offseason, I thought would be playing better, is not. Yeah. Well, he certainly does know Kung Fu. But in terms of the Broncos' moves in the offseason, McGlinchey has been absolutely trash at right tackle. He is not good, like just not good. And then Powers, who I actually thought would be much better than he has not been great. And then Russell Wilson's contract. Those are 3 big-time contracts that were signed in the offseason by our current GM. And I think that there does need to be some long, hard discussions in terms of what's happening here in terms of getting him out. If he's going to be signing these big contracts using all this, Walmart money, as previous comments have said there, that they need to be solid contracts, and you need to get solid players that fit the scheme that you're trying to work within. You don't go sign these mega deal contracts if these guys don't fit the scheme. You don't do it. You're killing the team.
And before they take a snap for you in the game.
No, to the question below. John, the answer is no.
So let me ask this question. Who do you want a quarterback? Who would be your ideal choice? Give me 3. Top 3. Top 3.
Williams.
Realistically.
What's their projected pick?
Hold on. Jacoby Brissett?
Jacoby Brissett would be a pretty solid one for Sean Payton offense.
Okay.
I actually think that Stidham would actually not be a bad quarterback for the Sean Payton offense, to be quite honest. I think he is capable enough to shimmy shake when needed, but he doesn't break the pocket like Wilson does when he sees ghosts, which is what Russ is doing right now. And so I actually think Stidham could actually be a pretty solid quarterback, and it'll be very interesting to see kind of what he looks like in the offense. I will give Stidham some leeway in the first little bit here. One, he hasn't played a tremendous amount of football this year, so he's going to take some time to kind of get back into a groove. And also, he's got two positions on the offensive line that are just simply not playing well enough to protect appropriately. So he's going to be kind of constantly with his head on a swivel until those positions are corrected.
Hey, Richie, I was going to say the same thing happened last year, and Stidham gave the Niners the best game that they had pre-playoffs.
Yep.
The second to the last game, because the Chiefs came and whooped our ass the last one.
Yep.
But Stidham gave them a game last year, basically with the same thing. He had an offensive line that was kind of shaky, and he almost won that game. So and some do.
And let me ask you this, Richie: are your QBs from the mindset of kind of next year will be? We'll see what happens, but hope that maybe we're in the top 5 and can reset with a generational talent, or that you just think someone other than Russell Wilson can be more successful?
I actually think what the challenge that we have is that Sean Payton is kind of like the Bill Belichick on the offensive side of the ball. And that, I think, is going to be a problem for the Broncos. When you've seen, like, at the beginning of the year, for what it's worth, this is what my take is of what's happened in the year. Sean Payton came in and the ownership said, hey, we've got guys that were already here that we think know what they're doing. Right?
That's going to happen.
And I think what the Broncos did was they said, well, Elway vouched for the guys that were here, so we want to see what they're going to do and blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? We went 1-5. So then Sean Payton basically told the owners in the front office, the ownership group, had said, they don't know what they're doing. We need to do it my way. And then I think that after that kind of Dolphins loss, Payton said, okay, can we finally do it my way, please? And I think you had Vance Joseph and you had Sean Payton take control of the roster and stuff. And that's where you see the major turnaround. You saw key players get benched. You saw key players move to different spots on the team, and you saw the offensive style shift as well.
Well, hey, but the other thing is that Sean Payton did that in Nolans because he let Williams take the defense, say, that's your baby, run with it. And it worked. And I think it's working in Denver.
Well, they're paying players to break clavicles.
Yeah.
They had a bounty program that seemed to be pretty lucrative.
Right, but when you look at what's happening in Denver right now, I think that Payton has a vision which the Broncos are needing. And I do agree, actually, John, with this comment. Last offseason, I thought the Broncos were going to go to a fire sale mode to ingest draft capital. I may have been 1 year off. This may be the year where the Broncos actually attempt to go fire sale to ingest a tremendous amount of draft capital. I think you might see guys like Justin Simmons. You might see guys like DJ Jones. You'll see key
Surtain.
Players. Pardon me?
Surtain?
I
don't think so. I think the Broncos are going to want to keep him as a defensive.
Put Surtain on the market. We'll scoop him up.
But
I'm just trying to think of what's the most lucrative piece where you could move up.
Those three. That's it. That's it. Those three.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Like I said, Judy's not hot garbage. You can probably take him for a 5th rounder and a ham sandwich right now.
Yeah, and I think
what a downgrade in running backs is maybe Williams too, but that's it.
Yeah, you're going to have Javonte Williams that might kind of fetch like a 5th kind of thing, where they think they can kind of reinvigorate some of the magic that he had in the earlier seasons, because he's certainly proved that he can kind of, be the guy. Williams would be very fitting in, say, a Dallas Dallas Cowboys kind of
Tennessee,
team. Or Tennessee Titans, exactly. He could be that kind of bell cow, run it all day long sort of thing. He is that guy, right? Like that's kind of what Williams is. He typically doesn't do well in share the ball kind of role. So that's kind of where I see things going for the Denver Broncos. So I may have actually been a year late, but nonetheless, I think.
Hey Charles, they got rid of Kareem Jackson.
He's in Houston now.
Yep, he got claimed off waivers. He's in Houston now.
Well, that was actually I kind of figured that was going to happen, and the reason for that is we have a right tackle that absolutely killed it in the preseason by the name of Alex Plazowski. And I believe that he's going to be plugged in at the right tackle either this next game, Coach, when we play. We're going to talk about that coming up when we play when our two teams face off.
Are there games this week? I'm sorry. I've been
Yeah, see, that's the problem. So, you don't even you're so high on your horse, you don't even realize what's going on next week. I see.
Yeah.
Oh, I do.
And so I could see Plazowski's plugging in the Chargers game. I could also see him at minimum coming in the last game of the season when he's back from injury there. And I could see that being a guy that Peyton is quite keen on seeing get some gameplay. We also have Greg Dulcich, who I also believe will be a trade piece this offseason. And I believe Sean Payton wants him to come back from IR to put out, as we were talking about, good tape at the end of the year to try to see if he can't fetch like a third or a fourth despite his injury history. Because there's a coach out there that says, oh, don't worry, we got a great trainer and I know what we're doing. So, I think that he's a guy that could be trade bait for another team as well for, a fourth or a fifth. But I think this might be the year. I was thinking it would be last off season when the Broncos were going to fire sale a bunch of players. I think this may well be the year where Sean Payton is wanting to retool. And unlike a lot in Broncos country, I want an interior defensive lineman with the first round. There's a bunch in Broncos country that's pounding the table for an edge. If we've seen anything from this offseason or this year, we've had no interior pressure up in the center of the defensive line. We need a defensive end that is a rushing end badly. It is kind of the stick that stirs the drink on the defensive side of the ball, because if you get pressure with the interior defensive line, the interior offensive line has to shift inside, and then you can get edge pressure.
Patriot, no. Sorry, but nah.
No, I don't think they're going to do that. I think what you're going to see. I think what you're going to see there is I think the Chiefs are going to kind of stumble, if you will, into the playoffs, and then I think Alex, I think you're right. I think it'll be a slaughter in the first round of sorts for the Chiefs, and like you said, I think it's needed. I think they need to have a bit of a wake up call to say, hey, we actually need to focus and know a quarterback can't carry you into the Super Bowl and win every year, right?
Yeah. Hey, Sean and Lafayette, MIZ, just wanted to get that out there since we're talking about Buckeyes.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I'm going to throw over to you, Alex, with your upcoming game.
All right.
And again, if there's any questions that you guys have for me on Wilson or anything else, please throw them in the chat. And everyone who is joining us live, we have a fair number of you here. Click that like button. It helps us reach more people just like you, and we can keep the show going.
Comment after the show, too. Comment after the show on all the channels. It helps the algorithm. Trust me.
That algorithm. But yeah, Chiefs are playing the Bengals this week. Certainly a different vibe of this game than it's been in the past couple of years, because usually this is a bit of preview of a game to get to the AFC Championship game or the AFC Championship game, but that's certainly not the case this year. One with where the Chiefs are at, and also with Bengals and Browning. So Bengals are coming off a tough loss where against the Steelers with Browning pretty much finally looked like a career backup. With what do you throw? I think 3 picks. But at the same time, I think KC could easily lose this game if they come out and play like they did, last week. From a KC's defense standpoint, matching up with the Bengals offense, I don't really have any worries. Jamar Chase is, I think, expected to play. That certainly will, add some wrinkles to the fold, so to speak. But at the same time, this Chiefs defense has been able to, like I said, pretty much shut down the team's number one option, pretty much contain an offense. It's just whether the offensive side of the ball does enough to help them out or keeps putting them in crappy situations. Ed, you might be right that they might be completely demoralized. I'd like to think that with how this all kind of cultivated last week and even seeing more, visibly upset and more visible / unprofessional reactions out of guys like Mahomes and Kelsey, you would hope that that kind of, maybe gets them to have some sort of players only type approach, and maybe something lights a fire and there's a little bit different vibe. But at the same time, like I said, call a spade a spade. I think I've been saying that for 4 to 5 weeks now, and every week seems to be a little bit of the same flavor. So, I'm not going to hold my breath.
They had a team meeting. That's what they were talking about, the bundling.
Yeah, there you go. You're right. That's true.
That's right.
Not if you bundle them.
Alex, I do have a question for you on that, though.
Okay.
So this came up last week. You weren't actually with us last week, so I think it's appropriate that it be brought back to the forefront, because I actually made this comment the week before. At this point, why are you guys not just bringing in wide receivers and kind of bringing them into your practice squad, churning them up and making them active for game day in hopes that you find a gem in there for the last 2 or 3 games? Like, at this stage here, do you really have anything to lose given the production you're getting right now?
What's even out there?
I get doing something like that if like you're 5-10 and certainly out of the fold. But facts still remain, they're number 3 right now in the AFC. Like, they're still very much in control of their destiny. It's not like it's done. So I think we have seen sort of a piece by piece shift, and like MVS is obviously way less involved. Tony has been inactive for the last 2 games. You've seen them take different approaches with, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, McKinnon, using them more in the passing game. But I think at this stage of the season, it's hard to just sign someone off the street and they're going to fit into the fold better than what's out there. So I would like for that to happen, but that's something that's at this stage got to happen in the off season, where I fully expect, I think outside of Rashee Rice, you're probably not seeing any of these other guys in the wide receiver room this next year. That's like I said, they're leading the league in drop passes. Mahomes is clearly a different QB in the way he approaches the passing attack. I think in that Raiders game, I made the comment more than 5 times that he holds on to the ball way longer than he used to, and it's clearly because he doesn't have trust in anyone, not named Kelsey or Rice. And then even then, I think he second guesses himself sometimes with, like he's leading the league, or he has the most interceptions he's had in his career. I don't think he's leading the league, but he's definitely up there with 14. But at the same time, that's not on him. Like, not all 14 of those are terrible reads or, a route was jumped. A lot of them are someone bobbling the ball or someone, not catching it and then batting it up for the defender to just take it. So yeah, like I think that there's definitely going to be an overhauling in that regard. But it's too late in the season to do that now, or to find really a viable option off of the street or off someone else's practice squad that's going to come in and make a big difference. but that's just the way it is right now. But
see, I kind of disagree with that. I mean, right now you have at least 2 wide receivers that literally cannot actually catch the ball. They literally have a single job. Actually, sorry, 2 jobs: run the route and catch the ball.
Yeah,
they're running a route.
They're not doing it,
and they're not catching the ball. And so the real issue here is, to me, it just seems crazy. Like, even if there's got to be at least one dude that your scouting department has scoured across the 32 teams practice squads to say, do you know what? The dude's not going to ever be a starter for us, but I think he can catch a football.
Yeah. You would think.
Yeah, like, it just doesn't make sense.
I don't know. Like, yeah, and they tried to remedy that a little bit at the deadline, right, by bringing Hardman back, but then he ultimately got hurt and was put on the IR.
Yeah.
They signed Richie James this offseason. But yeah, I mean, I think last season was kind of a false hope, and like, hey, we didn't have Tyreek and we were totally fine. We should be good. And it's been more like you said with the Broncos, last year at the fire sale. You last year also said, I don't think Casey's going to be as good because they lost Tyreek. Well, for some reason, you were right just a year later, because it's a totally drastic change, right? And this year to last. But yeah, I mean, going back to this Bengals game, it's obviously, it's a crucial game for both teams. If the Bengals win, they're in the playoff hunt. If they don't, they're out. And KC, it's kind of it's a must-win game for KC from my standpoint. I mean, at this stage, I think any game's a must-win with only 2 left. But obviously, it's more of a, you got to stop the bleeding at this point to get into the playoffs, and then anything can happen. So, it's certainly going to be a tough matchup, because Bengals kind of have nothing to lose. Backup QB still in the playoffs. Like, if we don't win, hey, we didn't have Burrow. If we win, holy shit, we won. It's kind of they're going to bring everything. Like I said, I'm not really worried about the defensive matchups on the offense. Cap, you're muted.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's not Burrowhead this week. It's
Browning Head, right?
Browning Head, yeah. Not Burrowhead this week. But, yeah. And again, they're playing fast and loose, kind of like what the Raiders were playing, since so they have nothing to lose. And they're going to go all out. It's just a matter, do they have enough horses to beat the Chiefs if and I say if they're down. If they shake it off, it'll just be another, yes, I did that deliberately. If they shake it off, it's just another game, and they'll be back in the saddle. But we'll see what they have to do.
But that's the thing, though. They can't afford to be down. I know I read this stat earlier, but they are 1-4 in games when they're trailing by double digits, and they have no fourth quarter comebacks this year. They're literally one of 2 teams to not do that this year, which is wild to think, because I know in games they'll pull up Mahomes' resume. Yeah, literally. That's the magic of Mahomes, is that it doesn't matter what he's down, he usually finds a way. But yeah, I mean so this is a must win, and they can't come out like they did against the Raiders. John kind of alluded to it. I mean, one of my keys of this game, is every game, but O-line has to step up way more than they have. And I know that they can do that, because at least I think through week 8, they were one of the better units in the league in terms of giving up sacks and overall pressure. But then, against the Raiders, you're looking at 4 sacks and 10 QB hits total, and Mahomes had to literally, look like somewhat of a kid with his parents' phone running around trying to get to the first down marker, just to move the ball. So, O-line definitely has to step it up, but I do think that, the Raiders' edge presence and overall, pressure approach is way better than the Bengals. The Bengals have Hendrickson, and that's about it. And he got hurt in last game, and I think he's questionable. So, that certainly can change the aspect. But, big O-line game. And then, it's tough to admit, but Mahomes himself has to play better. He has to make better decisions. He can't, he almost had another pick in that Raiders game for whatever, when he was trying, I think it was picked off, but it was called back. I can't remember why, but I don't even know what he was trying to do when he looked like he was trying to throw away, but he ended up just throwing it right to the Raiders.
Yeah, it was,
what the hell is he doing?
Right. It was Merrick and the officials in New York helped him out. Okay. Although Merrick did kind of, it did kind of bounce, but it was a great play by Merrick who was popping in. Yeah. And I was going to say,
from that perspective, though.
Right. 4 sacks. 3 of them was on Kuntz. And Kuntz was the big guy with the sacks.
And but from that perspective, though, he shouldn't have, that shouldn't have been a decision that an MVP caliber QB makes to even put, the ball in jeopardy like that. And he's, and that again goes to the lack of trust where, he holds on the ball for too long and he's like, oh crap, I can't get out of this. I got to get rid of it. And then we see stuff like that happen. So, from that perspective, he has to play better. Luckily, he's going against an easier opponent in the Bengals secondary and just defense overall. They just absolutely got roasted by Mason Rudolph, So I'd like to think seeing how that went, that maybe we could see a little bit more offensive juice out of them. But they're going to need that for this game. And they have to protect the football. I don't think I need to say that, but, they protected the football in just 7 seconds of game time last week. It might have been a totally different game that we're talking about with how the defense played.
Bundle it, baby.
That's not what happened. But, and I know I've shared the stat before. I don't think that they've won, they haven't won a game when they turn the ball over more than once. In years past, they've been able to mask that with the overall explosiveness, but they got to understand at this point that that's not there. So, at this stage, trust that your defense is going to go out there and have a solid game plan to shut them down and just don't do anything to get in their way. And they should, they should win. So, I do think it'll be a little bit closer of a game than it probably would have been if Browning was playing against the Chiefs last year. But I still think that KC, bounces back and finds a way to win. I predict the score 21-10. But it could easily be like a 17-14. I do, but I see the KC's defense holding the Bengals offense kind of to in their own way for a good part of the game. And it's just really up to Mahomes and everyone else to not put them in repeatedly bad positions and just move the ball downfield. They don't even need touchdowns. If they could just get a field goal on, most of their drives, they would probably win just with how their defense is playing and the opponents they have these last 2 games. So, they need to, like I said, stop the bleeding, kind of put together a safe game plan that just moves the ball and just let the defense kind of do their thing. And they should still end up where they want to be ultimately, in the playoffs, playing for the Super Bowl, albeit it's not going to be going through Arrowhead, or they're not having a first round bye. And, like I said, I think that it's going to be a pretty early exit this year, but they're still in the driver's seat of where they want to go. So, for all the bad things that happened this year that have happened with the Chiefs and their offense to look as bad as they have, for them to be 9-6 and still in the very much in the playoff hunt. And, I think a slim chance to still be the number 1 seed. I'll take that because there's been way worse seasons as a Chiefs fan than what we're dealing with now. So
I predict a Canadian Rush special, 21-12. 21-12 for my Canadian friends, Chiefs over the Bengals. I don't know. Right. Did anybody get that? No? Coach. Look it up, Coach. One of the best albums in the world, 21-12, Rush.
Hey, Max, shut up.
So, Captain, with that in mind, we're going to throw over to the Raiders game and get your take on kind of where you think that's going to land for your team coming up. Let's see what you where you think you guys are going to land this week.
Like I said, we got a double horse special to end the season, stopping in Indy, and this is actually playing out similar to a couple seasons ago when Bisaccia had to win the last couple games. The second to the last game was in Indy. I was at that game. Unfortunately, I'm not at this game. Hollywood is, so you'll see Hollywood on TV. Trust me. If you ain't seeing me, you will see Hollywood, my protege and partner in crime. I think that with the high that the Raiders are on, I think the trap game is actually going to be the last game of the year. I think it's going to be when Denver gets to Vegas, because Denver has never beaten the Vegas Raiders. I think that's the trap game. I think the Raiders win in Indy. It's not going to be easy because Gardner Minshew has been playing well.
Yeah.
And the Colts defense is nothing to sneeze over. And the Raiders and Colts games have historically been tough anyway. Okay, the two that I've been at, where the Raiders both won, they were both very close to the vest games. Okay, I think Brissett played at the first one a couple years ago, and the Raiders won on a pick at the very end. The safety whose name escapes me took the game, and they won on that one. And then the playoff game, or the game that got us into the playoffs, before we beat the Garglers, when we had to win. I had to, coach. Where they went into Indy and I was there front row. They played well enough to win. I think the Raiders come out with a victory. I don't know what the score is going to be. I just think that it's going to be a tough Raiders-Colts game, as it has been. And by the way, we owe the Colts for giving Jeff Saturday his only NFL frickin' victory. We owe them for that. Okay, so we
game.
Yeah, Raiders win.
I actually predict this is going to be a fairly low-scoring game. I think this is going to be like one of those 17-14 games, if I had to guess. It might also be like a 24-21, or it's going to be one of those very tight volley games back and forth, in my opinion, between the Raiders and the Colts. Colts have been playing better than their record shows, generally speaking, and they put up some tough games. So I think this is going to be a tough one for you guys. I agree. Although I think you do have players that are wanting to win, which is likely going to be the difference.
Yeah, just to bring this back, John, I said when we were talking about the Chiefs-Raiders game, I think Antonio Pierce, coached himself into being the favorite, to get the interim tag removed, and I think he should, because clearly seeing a culture shift in the Raiders and just the way they come out and play every week since McDaniels left, and I think you kind of need to go the opposite direction of the offensive guru from the with the stellar resume to someone who can connect more with players from a former player perspective and get more out of people. As he said, he touches players, so.
I caught that.
So that's going to be the Raiders-Colts game, and with that in mind, Coach, I'm going to throw over to you to go over yet another AFC West rival game
showdown
between the Chargers and the Broncos, in which would have been a more interesting game if the Broncos had actually played against the Patriots. But curious as to your thoughts on what this game's going to look like from a Chargers perspective, and throw over to you and get your takes.
I'm actually very clueless in regards to how this game is going to go. I really don't know. I probably had a better idea when Russell was the quarterback, but now that Stidham's, you never want to face the quarterback or the backup quarterback the first week, because you just really don't know exactly what to expect from him with their particular offense, right? So it could be a multitude of things. I'm just not sure. What I'm hoping, selfishly, is that they hand the ball off to Javonte Williams a lot, because I have him on my fantasy team this week and I'm going to win. That's not okay. So hand the ball off
And
to
be
Javonte.
sure to be sure right after this show, if not sooner, to hit up Go Get It, Coach.
The Lightning Fast Fantasy Football Podcast, airing right after the show at 9:30 on the Lockdown Defense Podcast Network.
Boom.
There you go.
Coach. You appreciate it. Appreciate the plug. No, pause. Appreciate the plug. Pause. Anyway, but yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Like I said, I think the level of effort will still be better. You get much better showing. You get the team more so against the win against the Bills than you did against the Raiders, obviously. I think people are playing for their, professional futures. So they're going to try to put good tape out there. Again, it should go back to my point last week about evaluating talent and getting the guys ready for next year. Kind of seeing what the rookies and the second year guys really have. Let them get a lot of reps against this Broncos team. Again, it's always a rivalry game, so you can't put too much emphasis on the idea that we're just looking ahead to the future. So there's going to be some type of effort in this particular matchup. You can't say it won't, but again, I mean, I'm just looking for just seeing what the new guys have. Trying to be healthy, trying not to have any ridiculous amount of injuries and things of that nature, and just seeing what the guys are going to be on the 2024 docket are going to look like going forward. How much how much are they going to develop between now and the end of the season? So that's really it's just a really developmental period for me. I'm not looking to win any more games, honestly. Stay in that top 5, top 7 realm. I'm good with it. Again, just don't get anybody that's relevant hurt. Obviously, I don't want to see anybody hurt, to be clear, but definitely no big time injuries that you got to really work your way back from, and just put a good show out there. But again, hand the Broncos a victory. We're good.
And you need Mac to get a couple sacks to just add to his
value
for someone else.
Tactfully tanking. That's the word. That's the word of the year. Tactfully tanking.
Tactfully tanking.
Play good, but don't win.
Right.
So my take on this is I actually
nice catch, Hayes. Don't ever effing do it again.
Yeah. So I actually see this game going quite a bit differently than some of the games you see the Broncos play in. I think Stidham plays the intermediate routes in the field a lot better than Russell Wilson does. I also think he reads the field a little bit better than Russell Wilson does. And so I do think, Coach, what you are going to see from the Denver Broncos this week is some things will be more limited for the Broncos because Sean Payton's not going to want to throw Stidham out, into the fire, so to speak. But what he is going to do is open up components and elements of the playbook that you have not seen open for the Broncos this year, which does make it more difficult, as you pointed out, that first week, right, when the quarterback's out there, because you don't even know what you're going to get
at all.
What am I going to prepare for, right? And so I think that's what you're going to see from the Denver Broncos this week. Is you're going to see intermediate routes. You're going to see.
Is Cortland Sutton going to play? Is he going to clear protocol? That's the question.
I think so. And I also think you're going to see Greg Dulcich likely return for a brief stint. He's a very formidable weapon on the offensive side of the ball from a pass catching perspective. That also goes, Coach, into my comments about the middle of the field. Dulcich is a legitimate middle of the field threat. He is faster than most safeties. He is definitely faster than linebackers, and he's taller than them both. So
why do I feel like this is a used car ad? You're trying to sell the NFL coaches on him so you can trade them.
Let me get you this nice Corolla.
Right. It's like a used car ad.
Let me get you this 98 Corolla. 300,000 miles.
Dosage, 6'5", 250
2
pounds.
airbags.
4.540. Yeah.
And definitely worth a second round pick.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
But I do think that he's going to be playing limited snap counts, but I think he's going to be impactful in the game. I do. I have to give the dude credit where credit's due. He is made of glass, but he is a very good player when he is on the field. So,
and you know, the backup quarterbacks love tight ends. Pause.
Yes. And then I also think you're going to see Kroll, who you've seen, who was just signed to our active 53-man roster, and a healthy dose as well. He's got that blend of reminds me a little bit of Saubert, actually, in terms of his play style.
Who? Who?
Don't get
The
us
man?
started.
I
Don't
haven't
get us
heard
started.
that. I haven't heard that name since the beginning of the year, man. That's
Yep.
a blast from the past.
Yeah. So Kroll reminds me a little bit of Saubert from a pass catching, blocking kind of combo. He's the guy that I thought Adkins was going to turn into this year, although Kroll has actually turned into that type of player for the Broncos. So I think he's going to be another guy that I think the Chargers is going to struggle a little bit with. He caught that really nice deep ball against the Patriots near the right sideline there. Great catch by him. And I think we're going to start seeing him worked more into the offense as well. So I just think it'll be the middle of the field that'll really give you guys fits. I think we're also going to end up with the tight ends being used more by Stidham because he's a taller quarterback, more likely to climb the pocket to throw the ball as opposed to Wilson liking to scramble and throw only to the outsides. And I think that's really where we're going to see, the game change is just plays will develop now as opposed to being forced and scripted more than they have been in the past. And then I think, Captain, I think that's where your comments earlier about the last game for your team is going to come in, where I think that as Stidham builds on the Chargers game, which I do think the Broncos will win. I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I do think the Broncos will win. But I think that's where it's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to be once Stidham gets that game under his belt and starts to kind of figure some stuff out, and Sean Payton and he are able to have kind of the second meeting after he's put tape and film out there. That is where it's going to be interesting. And I think I think the Raiders-Broncos game to finish the season is going to be one of the interesting ones. I really do. It is. I really do. Anyways, guys, sorry, and I do want to address this very quickly before we do sign off the show. Jerry Jeudy, I have never been a fan of. I simply just do not believe he fits the Broncos style of offense. Jerry Jeudy needs a Justin Herbert accurate, deep field, middle of the field quarterback who is a tactician. Jerry Jeudy would do very well with an Aaron Rodgers, for example, who
can't do good with anybody who can't catch the football.
Well, no, but the problem with Jeudy is that he's never thrown in motion. He is thrown behind him because the quarterbacks are not throwing particularly great balls. So I actually think that if he goes to a more accurate quarterback who throws while he's running with it, I think that he will do better. And Coach, you actually saw him catch the ball, which is, mark it on your calendar. But nonetheless, he caught it when he was in motion from Russ last game. And I think that kind of proves my point that he's not a guy that's going to be kind of a body perimeter catch guy like a Cortland Sutton. He's a guy that needs a precision guy like a Tom Brady, an Aaron Rodgers, a Peyton Manning, someone like that to throw him the football. Tua is a great example of another guy. You need someone like that, and the Broncos just don't have that guy on the roster. So,
and I will say this for all those people that were saying that the Raiders screwed up by taking Cooper over Jeudy. You saw how Cooper blew out those stats with the Browns. Okay, Cooper was in that. Cooper.
I think you're talking about Ruggs over Jeudy.
Right. It was Ruggs in that. It was Ruggs in that draft. But like I said, I still say
he blew out something.
Taking those Alabama receivers, it's either going to be gold or it's going to be crap. That's about the way it is. And Ruggs destroyed that, So again, sorry, this way it is.
So, anyways, guys, that's going to do it for the show. I do predict a Broncos victory in the division rival game here. Right after the show, please jump over to the Lockdown Defense network there to go ahead and jump on the fantasy podcast with Givens and Coach Defense. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have a great recap show and some really interesting news at the end of the week 17 week here in the NFL. And until next week, where the West Side is the best side. Peace.
Yeah! Street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simpo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my life.